Hello everyone, welcome into another video. I hope you guys are doing well. I had a lot of people asking me how to recreate a house like this and split it up into modular pieces like I did in the previous episode where I kind of just did it in the background in a time lapse. So I figured I would break down the entire process. This is going to be a long one because I really try to show you how to do the entire thing and really kind of think about making an asset like this with modular pieces in mind. So we go from creating this and then basically turning that into these pieces, which is all we need to recreate that entire house. But then we can also use these pieces to just build out kind of any size house that we want. So it is a good amount of work, and I ended up recording this pretty late last night and running into a few issues, and I was also just getting tired. So I did kind of re-record a couple of things and kind of like skip ahead in a couple of areas to check some things and then go back. And so the way this is edited, there's a couple of sections where I kind of skip ahead to show you guys what I've done. But that is really just to save you guys the headache because those sections that I cut out are really just me rambling and getting confused in certain areas. And I don't think it would be very helpful. So I still try to show the full process and everything like that. But anyway, before we get into it, really appreciate all the amazing support that you guys have given me. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you can. Really helps the channel out and help us grow. If you want to help even more, you can check out the links that I have below that lead to my Patreon, where you can get assets that I create. I put assets out every month. You get project files. And I also sell some assets on Fab. You can check those out if you need some assets for your horror game or just whatever. Really appreciate it. But with all that, I think we'll just go ahead and jump in and get started. All right. All right, so here we are in PureRef, which I love using this program. It's a wonderful program for gathering references, images, that kind of stuff. It's completely free and really, really useful. So I have gone ahead and just done some searching, which I would recommend you do as well. I literally just searched for like basic house plans on Google. And then I got a little bit more specific. I think for this one, I searched for like a basic 2-story house with a wraparound porch. And I found literally thousands. So there are tons and tons of sites out there that you can find good renderings and plans and everything like that. Now, I do want to say, in terms of legality, I am obviously not a lawyer, but I am guessing that these, especially like blueprints like these, or architectural plans, they probably have a copyright on them of some kind. So I would definitely not just copy these, one-to-one. Even if there isn't a copyright on it, like I still just wouldn't want to copy it one for one. I am gonna, probably change some things around. But I just want to mention that to keep that in mind, especially if you're going to be using it to, sell in a game that you're making or sell as an asset or something like that. Okay, so we can take a look at the house that I have here, and I've got a few different views, and this is just kind of a view from, well, obviously like the front left, and then we just kind of rotate around the house. Okay, all the way around to the back where we have a garage. I didn't find a view from basically this side, which I kind of would have liked, but that's no big deal. And then just finding these actual architectural plans are going to be really useful as well. Just, if nothing else, just to kind of get an idea of, what a bathroom should look like, just kind of like the layouts for those, kitchen, those kind of things. And just kind of know like a rough size of those will be helpful. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into Blender now, and I want to talk a little bit about the setup that I have for Blender because it might be a little bit different than yours. And I also just want to mention that this is not going to be an intro to Blender or like a completely beginner friendly episode for Blender. If you've never used Blender before, then I would highly recommend to go and watch some tutorials, just basic tutorials on working with Blender. I always recommend the donut tutorial by Blender Guru. I know it sounds cliche because I think that's what everyone recommends, but it really is great, and it's what I followed and really just shows you how to navigate around and work with Blender and use a lot of different tools that we will be using. So with that being said, I will still try to basically, comment on everything that I'm doing and especially point out any maybe unique workflows or specific things that I might do that are maybe a little bit different or maybe you're not used to using. I will do my best to point all of that out. Now, the other thing is I am using Blender 4.3, which I know currently the newest version of Blender is 4.5. And if you're watching this in the future, you may be on even a newer version. So keep that in mind. It shouldn't change that much. Like, I very frequently go back and watch tutorials from someone using something like Blender 2.8, and it's still pretty similar in terms of what they're doing, but there might be some slight changes that you see. There's also a few things that I always do to just a default Blender project that I have enabled. And I actually, some of you might not know this, but you can actually go to File, Defaults, and you can save, basically like change anything that you want to, and then you can go here to Default, Save Startup File, and then whenever you start up Blender, it will just have all of your changes there for you. So some of the things that I change and just always have on, I like to have the random color assigned to meshes. I like to have the cavity option on just because I like how it looks. And then I always turn my statistics on. For this specific tutorial, I'm also going to turn text info on. And this is going to be really helpful for us because if you turn text info on and then when you're in edit mode, you can go up here and you can turn edge length on, and then we can actually see the lengths of all of our edges. And this will be very helpful for us when we are creating the modular assets like we're going to. All right, so I'm going to leave that off for right now, but we will be using that. I have also slightly modified a few things. I think I made the little gizmo up here much smaller. I've changed a few of the keybinds that I use a lot. So I think there's really only two main ones that I changed. The first one is, I don't remember. I think this is normally the period key on the keypad by default. Basically the key to just kind of like zoom in on a mesh or like refocus on a mesh. I was always getting tired of reaching my left hand like all the way over to the period key, so I changed that to where I can just press V. And then I've also changed the isolate mesh view to be B, the letter B on my keyboard. And I think by default that is the slash key. So I just like to, try to keep my left hand pretty much in the same position and not have to really look at my keyboard or move my hand too much. And so I found that works really well for me. So if you see me doing that, of course I have the screencast keys up here, but just know that those two specifically might be a little bit different from yours. Which again, that just makes me want to just very briefly mention that you can completely customize Blender like kind of to a crazy extent, so you can go in here and change the key maps for literally every single shortcut in here. So what I normally recommend, what I did was I like to use Blender just like the default settings with Blender until I feel like I really have a good understanding of how everything works. And only when I start to feel like I'm really kind of getting held back, that's when I want to start customizing things a little bit more. which I guess that will lead to, I'll talk just very briefly about a few of the add-ons that I use. And to be honest, these add-ons are not super important for this specific project because they, the two main ones that I use are specifically for UVs. But I do use ZenUV and I use UV Packmaster. So you do not have to have these at all. It's not necessary. They are two really great add-ons. They are paid, and I do normally recommend them, but I only recommend them again once you get to that point to where you feel like you are, being held back, and maybe your workflow feels like it could be more efficient if you had better tools, specifically with the UVs, because Blender by default does not have great UV options. It works, but it's got some kind of quirky things that ZenUV really helps a lot with, and UV Packmaster is really even like less of a recommendation. I mean, I love it, but it really only does one thing, which is to pack the UVs in just a much more efficient method than the default UV packer. But yeah, those are two main add-ons that I do use, and you might see me use them a little bit here, but again, it's not super important. The other one that I use is the Unreal, Blender to Unreal export add-on. Again, this one is paid, unfortunately. I wish I had some good alternatives that were free. I know for UVs, there are a few. There's text tools like TEXTOOLS. It's free and it does some of the things that ZenUV does, but it's not as good. And then I believe there are a few different exporter add-ons that are somewhat decent for exporting specifically for Unreal. This is one that I got through, I think it was through a Humble Bundle. So I got it for very cheap, but I actually really like it because honestly, the main thing that I like it for is I can set up a folder to export these to, and then I can just click export and it will just export right away. And then the other thing is if you've ever exported something from Blender and if your mesh is not at the world location 000, then you probably know that when you bring it into Unreal, then your pivot point is messed up and it's like set to the world the world location. And then you have to go into Unreal and reset the pivot point, and that's kind of annoying. With this, it just keeps the origin points the exact same. So when you bring it into Unreal, then the pivot point is right where your origin point is. There's probably a way to just do that in the default settings that I haven't looked, but I just like that has it set up by default. I also have just a couple of things on my favorites bar here. So again, this might be something that you guys don't know about, but whenever you press Q, you get a list of favorites, or if you don't have any, then I think it just shows no favorites. But this is a really cool thing that you can add pretty much anything in Blender into a favorites menu. So for me, I have just the face orientation that I can turn on so that I can just check that the normals are facing the correct direction. And if you're in Blender 4.5, I know that they have changed the face orientation to where if a mesh is, or if a face is not flipped, then it doesn't show, and then it only shows the red side. To be honest, I don't really like that. I don't know if there's a way that you can turn it back to this method. There probably is, but that's just something to keep in mind if you see me frequently doing this, because I do that quite a bit and just make sure that my normals are facing the right direction. Also, whenever I'm in the edit menu, I just have the select sharp edges because I use that a lot, especially when I'm unwrapping or marking seams. To be honest, I probably should add more things onto my favorites bar. I just don't really think about it, but you can really add anything. Like if you wanted to add, I don't know, the subdivide option, you can just add that to your quick favorites, or clear sharp, you can add whatever you want. And I'm just right clicking on those, by the way. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk a little bit about is just modular assets in themselves, and just kind of talk about some of the things that I'm thinking about whenever I am creating or wanting to create a asset, whether it's a mesh or a house or whatever, that I'm going to make into modular assets. So the most important thing when it comes to working with modular assets is just making sure that they are all going to align to a grid of some kind. Now, because we use the metric system in Unreal and Blender by default, then that grid is going to be built on the metric system. So if you're pretty much anyone outside of the US, then you probably already know the metric system. If you're someone in the US and you don't know the metric system, then you really need to learn, because it's great and wonderful and easy to use, and very easy to work with. It's not hard, but everything is based on increments of 10, so it just makes working with modular assets very easy. So in Blender here, by default, we have the units to where if I zoom out, these blocks are 1 by 1 meter. So like our default cube is 2 by 2 by 2 meters. And this works really well because Unreal basically has the same kind of setup. So whenever you are working in Unreal, and like if you're on one of the starting maps, like the third person or first person kind of starting map, I believe that they have a grid there kind of set up like on the actual material that's 1 by 1. Of course, you can change that. You could do centimeters, millimeters, whatever. But it works pretty well that we have 1 by 1 meters here, and then 1 by 1 meters by default in Unreal. And so the main reason that we want to keep things lined up on a grid is because when we duplicate things and then we drag them over, we obviously just want them to snap together, right? And by the way, I am pretty much always going to be moving things with snap enabled. And I do that by holding Control and then move my mesh. But you can toggle the snap on up here. Okay, so that's the same thing. I just prefer to just hold Control, because even though in this project I will pretty much always be using Control, whenever I'm in a normal Blender project, there's sometimes when I want to snap, a lot of times when I don't want to snap. So I've just kind of gotten used to just quickly pressing Control and moving things if I want them to snap. There's a lot of different options for snapping in here, but we're going to just keep everything pretty much the same for that. So the other thing that's very important with our modular assets is where our pivot point is, or in Blender, our origin point of the mesh. So, by default, our default cube starts with the origin point right in the center of the mesh. So like if we rotate this, we're rotating it along the center. And very rarely do we want to have a modular asset with a origin point like that. I usually put my origin points in the corner at a vertex like this. It depends a little bit on the exact asset, but for most things like walls, I like to have them at one of the corners here, instead of just having it like right here, or even in the middle. This just gives me the most accuracy whenever I'm going to bring this into a level and move things around, and then duplicate and snap these together. So there's a couple of different ways that you can change the origin point of a mesh. When we right click on a mesh, we have the option to set origin to. So we can set it to geometry to origin, origin to geometry, origin to 3D cursor. So some different options here. Normally the ones that I am always using though is going to be origin to 3D cursor. And actually, you know what? I should really add this to my favorites because I use that quite a bit. So let's go ahead and do that. And essentially what that is going to allow us to do You probably already know about your 3D cursor here, but if you don't, this little cursor, this little gizmo here, can be moved around. So I think if you hold Shift and then right-click, you can basically move this anywhere you want. I know when I first started using Blender, I would accidentally move this, and then I couldn't figure out how to move it back. So the way that I normally handle my 3D cursor is I use Shift S, and then I get this little bar here. And so if your cursor is set like, somewhere out there, and you just want to bring it back to the 0, 0, 0 point, you can just bring it back to world origin like that. Okay, and then we can also snap meshes to the cursor. So with the mesh selected, I can do Shift S and then do selection to cursor like that. Okay, but now if I want to actually change my pivot point, like on this mesh to where we have it at this vertex, what I can do in edit mode is select that vertex, then do Shift S, bring my cursor to selected, and then I can tab to go back into object mode. And then we want to set origin to 3D cursor. So now when we are in object mode, our pivot point is right at the bottom corner there. So now when we duplicate this, we're always going to be starting at that vertex. Okay, now the other thing that I'm actually going to just undo this a little bit. Okay, and then let's also just bring our cursor back to world origin. All right, now usually whenever I start with a cube for pretty much whatever I'm making, one of the first things that I'm always going to do is go into edit mode, select everything, and drag it up. And this is essentially just setting my origin point to the bottom center there. And I often want to do that, like if I was making a table, it's just convenient to me to now have my origin point on the bottom here, so that if I want to size this, now it's going to size towards that origin point. Or if I want to rotate it on the x-axis, it's going to rotate like that. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and jump into actually getting to work on this. I'm going to set this to always be on top so that we can always see this. And then I want to really just look at this part right here, because we're going to start with our foundation. And really what we want to do is basically kind of, and so I think it'll be easy to kind of establish this wall, and then we'll kind of drag out or extrude out this way and start to shape some of these other things. And again, we want to think about all of this as we're making this, how we can split these up into roughly even-sized pieces. And this will make a little bit more sense as we go. Okay, so I'm going to go into X-ray mode here, and I'm going to go into Edit in Vertex Select, and I want to just drag this out to be roughly however long I think this is. I'm not even going to measure, they have this in feet anyway, and I don't really want to convert it. And what they may have may not even be like ideal for a modular setup. So let's see, that would be 20 meters. If we go to maybe 30 meters, let's just kind of start with that. I don't know if that might be too big, but we can very easily change this as we go. And then I want to basically drag this out or size this to where we have something like this front room here. Okay, so again, always holding control to snap. And let's just say if we go to right there, that is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So what I'm thinking about even right now is how we're going to split this up and what kind of results we're going to get in a modular floor, basically, because that's what our foundation is going to be. So if we just put a loop cut right here, then we would split this up, and now we have 3.5 meters here. So if I wanted to make these squares, then I would have to put another loop cut in here, and then we would have to do something like that, right? This would be perfectly fine, and I mean, we may even do this, but I like to try and keep things on the 1 meter marks as much as I can. Now, that doesn't always happen. You're definitely going to have things that are, going to be 2.5 meters or half a meter, or sometimes you might even have something that, just has to be like 1.6 meters or something. The most important part is that it is all at some increment of 10, right? But ideally, with the way Unreal measures things, you probably don't want to go much below like the 10 centimeter mark, because by default in Unreal, when you're moving things around, I think it's moving things on a 10 centimeter grid and snapping to that. So that's usually where I try to kind of draw the line, is going below a 10 centimeter mark. But again, these things are going to change. So if we just think about this, let's say maybe we try to go down to that mark there. Then we have 6 meters, right? And then we could split this up, and then we'd have 3 meters. And then that would probably work a little bit better, because then we could very easily divide this by 10, since it's 30. And then we would have 3 meter sections here, which would work really well. Okay, now I don't know if that's what we're going to do, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking about as we go. If we look at kind of continuing here, we need to make this porch. And if I'm looking here, I'm going to say maybe around the 2 meter mark, we pull that out. So let me go ahead and put a loop cut in here, and let's just bring that down to right there. And then let's see. Now we need to figure out how deep we want our porch to be here. If we did 3 meters, I feel like that might be too wide. But if we did that, we could extrude, oops, let me grab that face. We could extrude this way 3 meters, and then maybe we do 3, 3, 3. So let's do another 3, another 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now again, I don't know if this is exactly what I want to go with, but this would work really well because we're basically working with 3 by 3 meter lengths here. I feel like this is a little too big. Let's grab one of our guys. Let's duplicate this. That feels like a pretty big porch to me. I'm kind of thinking that, let's see. And I feel like 2 meters would maybe be too small. So you know what we might have to do is we might just have to go with 2.5 meters. let's see, I think I measured that wrong actually. Let me go back to the meter mark there. And let's go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And really the way that we're going, we might want to, let's see. Well, yeah, okay. So I think what I'm seeing here, because I feel like that's too big, I'm going to go back a little bit to where we just have this. And we might end up going with 2.5 meters. Which, if that's the case, I'm going to just delete these or dissolve those. I might only want this to be 5 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because 5 meters, that would be like a little over 15 feet. Looking at this, this is actually this way it's almost 14 feet, so not even as large as that. And then it's a little bit longer that way. So that may actually work fine for us. We are going to have 2.5 meter floor pieces, but again, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so if we did that, and then if we brought this down to, let's say the 2 meter mark here. Okay, so the 2 meter mark, because I'm just thinking about how far I want that to be right there. And we could do 2.5, but I feel like that is going too far into this. And we're also not going to have to make this 2 by, let's see, how do I say this? Just because I'm putting this line here, we don't have to make our floor pieces this size. I'm really just using this as a guide for where we're going to bring the other part of the porch out. And for the porch, I think that we will do, let's see, I'm going to shift D to duplicate that and bring that up to right there. Actually, don't shift D to duplicate that because that's going to mess us up. Let's just put another control loop in and bring this to right there. No, right there. Okay, so kind of running through my thought process here, because I want to make the porch 2.5, basically into 2.5 by 2.5 pieces. And then I want it to start at the 2 meter mark by the bedroom there. That's why I've put these loops there. So now if we go out 2.5, by the way, you can, there's a lot of different ways to do this when we're extruding as far as measurements. You can, of course, just drag it out to wherever, and then you can type it in over here, 2.5. I usually just drag it and just either kind of look at the grid, how far I'm going, but you can also look right up here. So when I'm moving this, you can see how far we're moving that. Now we need to start at the place that we're going to move it from. But if you look up there now, if I go out, I can see, okay, that's at 2.5. Okay, so let's do that again. Let's go out another 2.5 and another 2.5. Actually, that was 3. Okay, and then we'll do another 2.5 here and another 2.5 here. What it might actually help us to do is actually draw on here. So let's make this a little bit bigger for this. Okay, so what we're thinking about here is doing basically this, and then splitting this up to where we have 2.5 meter increments here. So this is 2.5. Okay, that handwriting is horrible, but it's hard to do that with a mouse. And then also what we're doing is bringing this over, and then we're splitting this so that these are 2.5, and then we have these that are 2 by 2.5. Now that's okay. We could, depending on how we put this together, we might be able to keep everything at 2.5. But it might also just be helpful to have some floor pieces that are slightly smaller. We might have some that are bigger. You know, it doesn't really matter just as long as they're going to snap together. Okay. So let's make this a little bit smaller again. Okay. So now I want to create the rest of this here. So I'm just going to go out 2.5 and then extrude one more time, 2.5. Okay, and so then that goes to the breakfast room here, which really this porch kind of extends all the way back, or it will extend all the way back. So what we could do is, I feel like what would work well is just to do another 2.5, basically just keep going 2.5 increments. And then this could be our breakfast room. Maybe that's, let's see, that would be 5. Yeah, that's actually pretty close. That would be about the same dimensions that they have there. And then for our back porch, we could do like another, I guess just 2.5 or 2.5 links there. And really what we could do is we could just go out 5 meters and then just split that in half with a control loop. And then we have everything right there. Now this is also where it could be helpful to look at the edge length so that we could just very quickly see everything that we have. Okay, and then these again are going to be 2 by 2.5, but we might be able to change that a little bit. But yeah, I think that's working pretty good. Now I feel like, actually feel like this is really too long back here. So I think that I will bring this in. And if we are going with 2.5 meters for our main floor, then I think it would make sense to make this 25 meters. Although let me just think here. If we put a control loop in here, and I want to put it at the same distance here, so that's going to be at right there, I think. One thing that I do a lot of times, if I want to line up a control loop or an edge with another edge, I can select the edge that I want to line it up with, bring my cursor to this area, then I can select this one and change my transform pivot points to 3D cursor. And now, as I move this, basically it's going to scale or size it towards the 3D cursor there. So basically what I can do is I can hit S, Y, 0, and you can see it actually wasn't in the right part. So now we are, and actually I'm wondering if I'm off there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think I messed something up here. Was it right here? Yeah, okay. So that's why this is really helpful. So you can see I kind of messed that up. That's 2.6. So I actually need to move all of this down. Now we've got 2.5. And now, I think I had that line in the correct position, but let's just move the cursor there. And then we'll select, why can I not select that? Okay, then we will scale that on the Y at 0, and then that will move that back. Okay, and then, yeah, so that is what I was thinking. That's actually going to make this 5.5, which is not really ideal. So I'm going to change this back to median point. We'll just move this down to where it's 5 meters. Then that splits up perfectly. We've got this line lines up perfectly. And then this section right here is 15 meters, which is going to divide perfectly by 2.5. So really, we just can go ahead and do that. And then now we have 2.5 everywhere except for right here, which is okay. I can live with that. The other thing that we could do, because I do feel like this is still a little long, we could, since we're going to have 2 by 2.5 meter pieces, we could just say that we're going to just change basically these pieces to be 2 meter length. And then that would bring all this in a little bit. It also would make this porch a little bit smaller, which I think it is, compared to this area right here. And I think I might like that a little bit better. Okay. All right, so the other thing that I am looking at, we need to extend our garage out quite a bit, because you can see that it almost comes to the porch there. So I am thinking, let's see, really we could, how do I want to do this? Let's delete all of these faces, because we're going to fill all of this in. Okay, delete those faces. Let me also just check my face orientation. That looks good. Okay. And then let's go ahead and just join these. So we'll put a face there. And then we'll put a loop cut right there so that now we have 2.5 meter length there. And that looks good. Now I should just be able to grid fill this. So face grid fill. Okay, and then we can grid fill the top here as well. Okay. All right, so the only other thing that I think I want to do is just extend this garage out to maybe one more floor piece here. So let's actually delete that face, and we'll just extrude this out like that. Okay, and then I'm going to select everything, merge by distance, and that'll just clean up my vertices that were overlapping there. Okay, so I am feeling pretty good about that. Something kind of looks off there. Let me just see. I think it was just a kind of a weird visual thing, unless... Ah, okay, yeah. Thought something looked weird. We just had an extra face in there that we didn't need. Okay, so yeah, this is really kind of the hardest part, is just getting like this base. And now this is going to make everything much, much easier for us, because we can go ahead and start kind of building the shell of the house. And I kind of like to think about this kind of around each floor. So we'll start with the first floor, And I basically want to just go into edge select and select any edges that we want to extrude up to our first floor. Okay, so we're going to go there and there because this is going to be our porch. And then we'll move over like this. And then, oh, you know what? One thing I did forget is that little breakfast area room. That kind of extends out a little bit right here. So why don't we extrude that out? Let's go 0.5. That's going to give us an additional size here, but that's okay. I can live with that. We could decide we could either do a just like a 0.5 by 2.5 segment, or we could do a 3 by 2.5 segment. But I think it'll probably be best just to have these smaller pieces. Having more options is never a bad thing, especially when it comes to floor and wall sizes and that kind of stuff. Okay, so anyway, let's go back to selecting what we want to extrude. So we're going to go like this, and then around here. And then let's look at kind of this angle. So this wall kind of comes in to right there, and then we go out. And then this will be that wall right there. And then we've got our garage, goes all the way across. And then this wall will all be one floor. Okay, so that will be our first wall. So we're going to extrude up on the Z-axis, and then we need to figure out how tall we want our walls to be. And I've gone up 3 meters, and I think that that is probably what we're going to go with. I think that 3 meters is a pretty good length for or height for our walls. It might feel a little tall, but remember that we want to have a ceiling and then a floor on top of this. So, and that's not going to be just a plane. So we will have a little bit of space that'll be filled in there. And then you can always, of course, have slightly taller walls and bring in your ceiling and make it, whatever size you want. So yeah, I think that that works well. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do as well is I'm going to select basically our first floor walls. I'm going to hit P by selection, and now I'm going to call that my, we'll call it first floor shell. Okay. By the way, I guess I should say, if you are someone outside of the US, I know some people, especially in European countries, you would not call this the first floor. I think you would call this the ground floor. And then what I would call the second floor, which would be the next floor above, is what you guys would call the first floor. So I just mentioned that really quickly while I'm naming these things, because it might be kind of confusing depending on where you are in the world. But here in the US, we call this floor the first floor, and then the next floor would be the second floor. I'm also going to go ahead and name this the foundation. Okay. And now let's go ahead and work from our first floor. Oh wait, I thought I named that. Let's see. First floor shell. Not really sure what happened there. Anyway, we'll now work from this, and we'll do the second floor. Okay, so once again in the front here, looks like this is all going to go up, and then we've got this and this, and then looks like this wall is actually going to go back. and it's kind of hard to tell where that is. It looks like that is probably... It doesn't quite look like it's lined up with that, so that's a little weird, but I think what I will do is try and line it up with that. Now, what I'm going to do here is go ahead and select out to here, and then I'll go ahead and extrude this up 3 meters, and then I'll just extrude this over 2.5, and then one more 2.5. So that should be basically this wall right here, which we'll go ahead and just connect that. And let's take a look at our faces, and yeah, those are all messed up. So let's select everything, hit Alt in, recalculate outside. Now that looks good. Okay. And then what I'm also going to do is just go ahead and separate this part, P by selection. And so this will be our second floor shell. Okay. And yeah, now I think we can start thinking about the roof. So for the roof, I think we will make this one first, because for a couple of reasons, it looks like it's the tallest piece, and it also is going to be pretty simple. It just goes all the way across, basically from here to this edge. So I think what I'll do for that is I'll select here and there, and I'm just going to do Shift D to duplicate that, P by selection. And then go into edit mode, and let's see. Yeah, so this is actually fine. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that, fill all of this. And I don't need these, so I'm going to dissolve those. And then I've got this that is now right in the middle of our mesh. And so we can just drag this up to wherever we feel like we want to go. I'm thinking kind of something like that. Okay. I'm not going to fill this in yet because I want to put the rest of the roof pieces on here and then kind of get a feel of what everything looks like. So let's do this one right here. Okay, so this one should be pretty straightforward. We just need this right here. So I'll just Shift D, P by selection. If you have a hard time selecting that, by the way, just go into X-ray mode, and then it'll be a little bit easier to select. Okay, but we'll go here, F to fill. I'm going to just actually dissolve these. Dissolve vertices. And then I'm just going to put a control loop right in the middle there. And then we'll just drag that up, making sure that snapping is on. And then for this one, so I actually feel like let's see. I feel like maybe 2.5 is kind of where I want to go there. Okay, this is really just a kind of a feel. There's no real specific way that I'm going about this. And then for this back part here, I'm just going to select these back edges, and I'm going to E to extrude. but I'm only going to extrude this part right here, like this. And I'm not really even going to worry about snapping this. I just mainly want it to, let's see if we look at it from the left side, or, well, I actually can't see that because it doesn't have any thickness, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to drag it just to where it's overlapping that. That's the important part. And we'll kind of fix that up a little bit later. Okay, now let's go ahead and maybe get this guy right here. So that'll be over this little room here. So we'll select here and Shift D, P by selection, and just go ahead and fill that and dissolve those. Yep. And then we'll put a loop in. And I think we'll probably go up about the same amount, 2.5. That feels pretty good. Yeah, because it looks like this goes just below kind of where this roof juts out. So I think that works pretty good. Okay. Now, again, we're not worrying too much about the rest of the shapes of these. We'll you know, do some little things like make these little inlets and areas that come out. But for right now, I just want to get the rough shape of this. Okay, now this back roof is going to be a little bit more tricky, I think. Because... yeah, let's try and make this piece first. So this is basically here and here and here. The other way I could do this is I could just go ahead and fill this, and then I could just do P by selection. That would work as well. Okay, so this is going to be right in the middle, and then we'll go up kind of quite a bit because that is going up pretty high. Let me actually just go into the back view. Let's see. So there's 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters. Maybe 4.5. That feels kind of good. Okay. Let's go with that. Now, again, this part's going to be a little interesting because I can't actually see, like the other view that we have is just right here. Well, I guess I can see that this roof goes all the way across. So, you know, looking at it from this view, you'll see that this goes all the way to the back. But the problem is we have this right here. So, you know, we could just extrude this back like so. And then we could split this. And then I could, let's see, go back. Then I could try to like line this up a little bit, which is going to be pretty hard, really. But, you know, if I do something like this, and then we'd need to just go out like this. I could try and like eyeball it, you know, or I could even snap to, I could even select both of these, press G to move, then hit B, and then I could select a corner like that and snap it like that. And that would work, but the problem is here. So you see these are not perfectly the same length. And, you know, to be honest, most people probably wouldn't notice that. But I like to try and get things as perfect as I can. So, you know, at this point, this is going to be kind of hard. Maybe we could try to move this a little bit. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a different method here. So let's do this again. Let's extrude this out. Whoops. To right there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to separate that. So I have just this piece. I'm going to select this part, and I'm going to bring my cursor to the center of this. So cursor to there. Then I can take this piece and go into edit mode. Let's Shift D to duplicate. And then I'm going to change this to rotate on the 3D cursor. So now I can rotate it on Z, rotate it exactly 180 degrees. And now that should be perfect. We just need to get rid of these. And those we can do pretty easily by just putting an edge loop in here. I'll drag this up. And then I'll just do GG to slide, and then B to kind of connect to that vertex, and then it'll snap to this edge right there like that. Okay. And so then we can just select this and delete this face. And then we can do the same thing on this face. So this one we can just GG to slide, B to snap to there, and then move it up until we snap with that. And now I can delete that. And now we have perfect symmetry. 5.05, 5.05. And that's what we want. So that's really nice. Okay, let's just check face orientation. Got some faces to fix here. Alt in, recalculate outside. That is looking good. Okay, now at this point, I think I will go ahead and fill some of these in. So, how do we want to do this? I think that I want to have a bottom to this. So I'm going to fill in a face there. And then I'm going to put a loop cut in the middle so that I can then connect this like so. And we'll do this over here as well. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to add some thickness to the roof. And I also want to, let's see. So I want to add thickness to the roof, and then I'm not going to do it exactly how they have here. Let me just kind of do what I'm going to do, and I'll walk through it. So first thing, we want to make sure that this is all scaled, that the scale is set 1:1, which it is. If it's not, you just need to select your mesh, Control A, and then click on Scale. And I'm going to select these top pieces here. I'm going to press E to extrude, and then I'm going to hold Alt S, and that's going to let me do this. Now you see it kind of freaks out because we need to be a little bit more fine-tune of an adjustment here that we're doing. So I'm going to hold Control or Shift as well. Okay, so I'm holding Shift, Alt, and S essentially. Let me just do that again. So I'm going to E to extrude, and I'm not going to click anything. I'm just going to hold Alt and S. Or actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Okay. E to extrude, then I'm going to right click. Okay. So now we've got that extruded. We've got two faces that are overlapping there. Now I'm going to press Alt S and Shift, and that's going to let me move my mouse and get this more kind of smaller adjustment here. Now, I think I'm going to go, I'm just going to go out a little bit, and I'm going to change it right here. I think actually 0.2 is going to work pretty well. So I'm going to do 0.2, set that at 0.2. And then you want to make sure that you have even offset is checked as well, because if you don't, you'll see that this is not actually even here. Okay, so then we get that, which looks good. Then I'm going to select there and there, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to press E to extrude and right click, Alt S Shift, and then we're going to push this out like that. And for this, I think we will maybe go maybe like 0.5. Okay, I think I like that. And then the last thing that I want to do is extrude this part out as well. We'll do it on both sides. Okay, so same thing here. We're going to E to extrude, and then I'm just going to right click to let go, Alt S Shift, and we're going to go out this way. And for this, I think we'll do 0.5 maybe. So I think we went 0.5 on each of those. So 0.5 that way and 0.5 that way. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and do the rest of these. So we'll do kind of the same thing here. We'll create a face down here. Put a loop there. Fill this in, fill that in. And then we're going to select our faces here. And again, make sure that we are scaled, our scale is applied. E to extrude, right click, Alt S Shift, and we're going to go 0.2. And then make sure that offset even is checked. Okay, and then for this part, I only need to select these pieces here. Yeah, because we don't really want to extrude that part. So we're going to do E, Alt S Shift, and we'll go 0.5. And then same thing on our edge here. Just extrude this out to 0.5. Okay, now this this is not really perfect, but I think it's gonna be fine because we're probably gonna like cover that up in the level anyway with you know, maybe like a gutter or something, or maybe we have a pillar that runs down the house or something like that. So it might be something that you want to think about. You know, the other thing that we could do is maybe just bring let's see, like these edges back, something more like that. You might have to kind of just play around with that a little bit more. I don't really love that either. Let's take a look at just this. Yeah, we really probably should bring this in as well. You're not really going to see these parts, so it's not super important as far as how it looks here. But, you know, if you are going to have maybe a roof or a like an attic area, then you might want to think about this more. Maybe, let's see, if we just push this all back a little bit. Oh, okay. Hold on. Let's press A. Let's merge by distance. We had some overlapping vertices there. So that was giving me kind of some weird issues there. So I'm going to select all of that, just push this back a little bit to where we kind of go in there. So yeah, it's still not perfect. Maybe we could move this back a little bit more. I don't know. I probably would figure out a way to basically hide this. I almost think that just pushing it back will look better. Yeah, I think for right now, I'm going to bring my cursor to right there, and I'm going to select these edges. Change this to 3D cursor, scale on Y 0, just so that that's all lined up. I'm just going to keep it like that for right now, and we'll look at it later if we decide that we want to change anything there. But I think for what we have right now, that's fine. Okay, let's do this guy. So we will bring in a face there. Fill this. And we're going to make sure that we're scaled to 1. E to extrude. Out 0.2. And then we're going to go down 0.5. And finally, extrude this out 0.5. Okay. Now, this guy's going to be a little different. Let's see. Let's actually do this one first. Okay, so let's, we will fill this in. Okay, E to extrude, Alt S. Oh, okay, hold on. I think we've got some overlapping vertices here. Yep, just needed to merge there. E to extrude, Alt S. 0.2. And then here, we're going to E, Alt S, 0.5. And then back here, E to extrude out, 0.5. Okay, now for this one, I'm going to just go ahead and extrude like this, 0.2. Okay. Let's extrude this. Let's see. Extrude. Oh, hold on. I think I did that twice. Try that again. E, Alt S, 0.5. And now, not sure if I want to, since we already have this perfectly lined up, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a loop cut in here. And I'm going to change this to median point. I'm going to GG to slide this all the way to the edge. I'm going to click. And then I'm going to move this back exactly 0.5 to right there. So what I'm doing there is basically creating our overlap. And then what we'll do is, let's see, basically just fill this. And we can still put a loop in here. Just connect these. We really don't need to do this, I guess, but I'll do it just in case. And then yeah, we're gonna need to, I'm not sure if I want to, how do I want to do that? We could either push this piece back. This is a little bit of a, it's a little bit of an area where, like, modularity is not going to work great for this because this is kind of a very specific connection right here. So in this case, you're going to have to make a decision. If you want to keep it and, you know, do what they're doing here, then I would probably just do something like this, and then again move this down to where we have, let's see, 0.2 is where we would need to go to. So that's kind of hard to see. Actually, that doesn't look right. Oh yeah, no, that's right. So yeah, this is kind of hard to get because I don't think I can type in a number here. I guess what I could do GG to slide, B to snap to that, and then, yeah, there we go. Now we can snap there. That would work. And then we could grab that face, and extrude that back 0.5 minus 0.5, and that would put that right at the edge. So that is a way that you can do that, but again, just keep in mind that, you know, this is now really only going to work for this piece right here. But what we could still do, we could still create, and we will create modular pieces for these. You might just have kind of like a one-off piece that is specifically for that if you want to do that. All right, now this back part here, let me think how we want to do that. I mean, we could just, you know, basically do this. But then on the inside, we've got this, which doesn't look great. So there's maybe another way that we could go about doing this. What we need to do is basically have a loop cut here and a loop cut here. And I need to bring it to, like, right where this is intersecting, basically. So I'm just gonna, I think that we could just kind of eyeball this. Maybe if we go 2.5. So, oh, that's actually not exactly what I wanted. Not really sure what some of these numbers are telling me. Okay, maybe right there. So where it says 2.5 right there. Yeah, I like that. So now we have a 4 by 2.5 meter length. And then this should be the same thing here. So if we go to right there. Okay. And now what we can do is just grab these and then just push this back to somewhere kind of like this. And really, as long as let's see. Wait, did we not add? Hold on. Oh, I see. Okay, we didn't actually add the inner part here. was like, something doesn't look quite right. Okay, so I'm just going to fill this in right here and fill that in there. Then we can hide this a little bit easier. Yeah, still don't really like what's going on right here. Also, that will help us over here as well. So, yeah, now that piece is completely hidden. If, you know, what I'm imagining here is if you have a, if you have an attic that you want to actually go and walk around in, we obviously don't really want to see like these other pieces. So, looks like how we have it here, that is going to be fine. We also don't actually have any thickness to this, but we can think about that later on. I think it's fine as it is. I do just want to think if there's maybe a better way that we could do this. So I don't love how this is showing like this. Okay, well, I think I'm just going to leave it how it is for right now. The thing is, when we add thickness to our walls in here, then that's going to be hidden. So I think that that will be fine. I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue. So I'm just going to leave it as is for right now. One thing that I see that I don't really like is this gap that we have right here. So because of that, I think I am going to change the size of both of these. So I'm going to select both of these, go into edit mode, X-ray mode, and then I'm going to select basically all of this. And I want to just drag this, let's see. I'm going to drag all of this out probably 0.5 meter. If we go to 0.5, yeah, that's perfect. So now that this wall lines up with our back wall perfectly, and I like that better. And then what we'll probably want to do is just let's extrude maybe this piece Y. Oh, hold on. I meant to extrude just that edge on Y by 0.5 or minus 0.5. Okay, and then I'm just going to merge vertices. Okay, yeah, that works much better, I think. And yeah, I guess we should probably put a roof on, or a ceiling on this piece as well. So let's do that. And then let's just add one loop there. And then we will merge by distance. Okay, I think this is looking pretty good. Okay, now the last piece of roof that we need to make is for our porch here. So what we can do is actually just select all of these pieces. And I'm just going to Shift D to duplicate those, bring them up 3 meters. And then we need to figure out if we want to tilt these down or, yeah, I think, let me think. I think what I want to do is actually bring this down maybe 0.5 meter. Okay, that's going to be the base of like the bottom part. And then I'm going to select the edges. Let's see. Oh, hold on. We need to actually separate this. Okay, so now I'm going to select just these back edges, like so, and we're going to raise that on Z by 0.5. Oh, and I'm also going to need, let's see, we'll need a loop there, so I'm going to connect those with J. And then, again, we'll raise this on Z by 0.5. Actually, you know what? Let's do it like this. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate that line. I'm going to raise that up 0.5. And then I'm going to just connect these. And then here we'll connect that with that. And let's see, that like that. And then that one with that one. That one with that one. Okay, here it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to isolate that. Connect those and connect those. Okay, and then I think I want to add a little bit of height to, or like a little bit of a lip here. So I'm just going to extrude down maybe 0.15 so that we get something like that. Okay, and then I guess let's see, we don't really need these faces. Don't need that. Don't need that. We will need these. Okay. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so now let me go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and create some pillars here, and we'll also create. Maybe we do our steps first, or pillars. Actually, one of the things that I want to do is on this foundation, I'm going to put a control loop all the way around the edge here. And I'm going to raise that up to, let's say, there. Actually, let's go down there. So we have 0.2 meters here. And then I want to go into X-ray mode. I'm going to select all of that. Okay, so we basically just have that little edge selected, or that face selected. Make sure that we are scaled at 1. I'm going to extrude and then Alt-S Shift and even offset, and I'm going to go out by maybe 0.1, just so we have a little bit of an edge there. Okay, I like that. And yeah, let's go ahead and make a pillar now. So I'm going to try to think about this again to try and keep my pillars as symmetric as we can. Let's see, if I bring my cursor right there, let's start a pillar right there. So let's start with a cube. Okay, this is not going to be anything super amazing, but we'll just do maybe something kind of like that, and let's go into X-ray mode. It doesn't really matter. I'm not too concerned about like keeping these dimensions perfect here. Really, I just want to do something that I can make something look halfway decent. We'll just, let's see, go up. Actually, let's do this. Go in a little bit, and then I'll just pull that up. And then I'll extrude that. Let me get a guy up here so that we can kind of see. Okay. And then maybe we just do something else like this. Bring my cursor there, and I'll do a cylinder. I think this is maybe a little too big. I'm going to, yeah, let's maybe do like 0.2. And then I will still kind of keep this shape, but bring this up like that. Make this a little smaller. Bring that just down, just inside of that. And we can also just delete the faces on each side of this. Okay, and then we'll just go, I don't know, somewhere kind of like around there. And then I'm going to take this piece, duplicate it, rotate it on Y by 180. And then just bring this up to where it just kind of goes into that. And then I'll just change the shape of this a little bit to where we get something kind of like that. This maybe looks a little big, actually. Let's do maybe like that. Okay, well, it's not the most beautiful pillar I've ever made, but it's perfectly fine. So then we are going to want... Oh, you know what? Actually... we might want to extend this out a little bit since I added that lip to the foundation. Yeah. Let's go out a little bit. It's going to change the size of this, but that's okay. So I would kind of like for that to really cover all of that. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and quickly UV unwrap this. We can actually... delete these because I don't need those. And I'll just put a seam back here. And we'll just do... Actually, just select all the sharp edges there. Mark seam. And let's go ahead and apply scale. And I'm just going to do a quick unwrap there. That should be fine. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and join these together as well. And our pivot point, now on this, I think having it right in the center is actually good. So I am perfectly fine with that. I also think, I don't know, I don't really love this Here, I'm going to add just a little something else here. Just going to go like that, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe bevel that. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay, we'll unwrap that again. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, that'll be fine. Now, of course, we probably don't want this to be right on the edge as well. So I'll maybe move this back. I don't know, maybe kind of like 10 centimeters there. All right, now, yeah, so the good thing now, well, yeah, it's not going to work perfectly. I was going to say now we could just do these 2.5 exactly. But if I do 2.5 exactly, then this is right on the edge. So we would really need this moved to like right there. And then that kind of messes up the distance that we have here. Because, let's see, that is, we do 4.9 meters. So yeah, 4.9 doesn't really divide great, but I mean, it will still work because it would be 4.9, so 2.45 meters. So we would just need to move this 2.45, and now that should be right in the center. And we're still on, you know, like an increment of 10, so I think that will be fine. And then for over here, we could go, let's see if we did 2.5, 2.5, oops. Yeah, that's not perfect either, but this is kind of just one of those things that you have to kind of figure out when you do this. So it won't be the end of the world if, you know, technically this distance between this one is slightly less than the rest of the distances there. I am okay with that. Let's also look back here because these were a little bit different as well. So let's say if we start right on the edge there. Let's see, 2. We could just do 2 and 2. That could work. And then we could either have like a little tiny section of railing there, or we could just leave it open or do whatever we want to do. But yeah, I think that'll work fine. Let me go ahead and make some steps now. So let's bring our world cursor to the origin, and let's do just a cube. Okay, and then I'm just going to raise this up so that we have that. Bring this over. Okay, and then I will scale this down to 1 meter, and then we'll just make some steps in here. So lots of different ways to make steps. I'm going to just add some loop cuts in here like this. So this will be like the thickness of my steps. And then we'll just do maybe something like that. And let me actually turn text info off because that's a little annoying. So yeah, now we'll just say, let's go into X-ray mode. So we'll just delete maybe that, and then that. Just kind of go like this. Oh, wait. Okay, delete that. And then we can just fill in like this. Probably a faster way to do this. I know that sometimes I use an array, make a single step, and then use the array modifier to add in and adjust the location. That works as well. Whoops. Okay, and probably what I would want to do, because we have this kind of Z fighting going on here, when I bring it into the level, I will probably just bring this down just slightly. You know, we could just make a decision to make this like, you know, maybe, I don't know, 0.95 or something like that instead of 1 meter, but we'll just leave it like that. I think it'll be fine. Okay, now, yeah, one thing I didn't really think about, I would kind of like for my pillar to be right here, because I want to have a little railing for, you know, like a little handrail. So that might kind of change some things, because let's think about if we started right here. Oh, I have no idea what I did down here. Okay, I don't know what in the world I did there. Let me save. So let's see, let's duplicate that. And now that would be 5.4 meters. So 5.4 divided by 2 would be 2.5 plus 0.2, so 2.7. Is that right? That actually works out better than the other way. The only thing is now these are not the same distance apart. So that could be a little bit of an issue. Let's see if we did 2.7 on each one. Where would that put everything? Yeah, so that's going to mess things a little bit up there. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's definitely too much there. But this could be okay, because how much do we have here? What is this distance? So that's 1.9. So what if we did back here 1.9 and 1.9? So what I'm thinking about here is our sections for the railing. So these will all be, I don't even remember what it was, 2.7, I think. 2.7, 2.7. And then here we have a 1.9 section. 1.9, 1.9. And we could even create a small little one if we wanted to. You know, you can never have too many options, especially for those types of things that, you know, someone might be making a level that they want to have a much longer length or maybe a slightly different layout for this. So that's really just kind of what I'm going with here, trying to figure that out. While I'm here, let me also go ahead and just name this pillar. And let's create some railing for this now. Okay, so we'll do, actually, let's do this. Let's select that, and I'm going to Shift D, P by selection, so I have just that piece. And then I will just scale this in to, it doesn't really matter here, it's something kind of like that. And then I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Okay, and then I'll just extrude this out. And let's see, I do want to make sure that this is actually a decent measurement here. So let's do maybe 0.5. And then for this, I'm going to make these a little bit skinnier. Okay, so now because that's 2.5, let's just put a array modifier on here. And then if we maybe give us a spacing of like, whoops, 3. Okay, so that looks pretty good as far as being even. I think that might want to make these a little bit smaller. Somewhere like that. Now, I'm not super concerned about having like the exact same length between, you know, here and here and here and here. And actually, I kind of like that this is going to be a shorter section for one specific reason, which I will talk about here in just a second. So let's go ahead and let me think about how I want to do this. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my cursor to selected. So we're right in the center of this. And I'm going to create a cube from that. And then I'm going to go into edit mode and pull this all the way over so that our pivot point is right there now. And then I'm going to scale this on Z. So this will be like the top of the handrail. Okay, somewhere around there. And now what I want to do is bring my cursor to this point. And then I'm going to edit this, grab these vertices, and we're going to scale that to 0 on the X, so we get that. Now, the reason that I did that is because I want this piece. I want this piece to line up perfectly in the middle of these. Or do I actually? Okay, wait. Now that I think about it. Yeah, so the distance that I have here should be 2 of those. That means that the distance of one of these... actually, let's turn our text back on. That'll make things easier. Yeah, these are 0.05. So 5 centimeters. So that means that the distance that we have in between here is 10 centimeters. So I think what would be good is for us to have this. Let's see. Let's see if I can snap that. Yeah, to that. And then let's go out exactly 0.05. And then let's do the same thing here. G, B, X. Yeah, there we go. X. Okay, and then pull this out 0.05. That just barely goes into that, but that's fine. Oh, I need to need to scale it on the Y. Forgot about that. Okay, we'll just do something kind of like that. Go ahead and apply scale. Okay, so if I am thinking right, which I'm getting tired, so I might not be, but now if I duplicate this, we should, that should snap together. Yeah. So it snaps together. We have to zoom in a little bit, but then we also, this should be the exact same increment that we have here, although it doesn't look like it. This feels slightly off, and I'm not sure why. Factor of 3. Oh, no, it is right. Okay. We just weren't perfectly lined up. But so we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So it's kind of moved over slightly and moved over slightly on this side. But the distance between here and here is 0.1 meter, which is good. So now when this is snapped together, you have the exact same distance here. So that means if someone wasn't setting it up like this, they just wanted a really long rail, then that would still work. Now, I don't know. Let me also, let's go ahead and, well, let's do a couple of things. Let's add a mirror on here and mirror that on the Z. Actually, that won't work, will it? Let's bring our, let's see, let's bring cursor to there. Let's set the origin to geometry. There we go. The other thing that I'm going to do is delete the faces on that because we don't need those. Although someone might want those, so maybe you would want to leave them. You know what? Let's leave them. Just in case someone wants to actually be able to see the edge there. Okay, so that looks good. But what I want to see, I'm actually just going to delete that one because this one is the main one that we're going to use. And I'm also just going to duplicate this just to have a copy since we've got some modifiers on here. So now what I want to see is if we go out to here, rotate this Z 90 degrees. Yeah, so we're going to need to add... Oh man, we're so close, aren't we? Oh, actually, wait, that does work. Oh, that's right, because we did measure this to where these are the same distance. It's this down here that's going to be different. Right. Okay, so for this one... Yeah, so this is a little unfortunate. But I think I can live with that. So what we could do is... let's see. We could just edit this. Bring this back to... maybe there. So what is the length of this now? 1.85. Yeah, I can live with that. That'll work. Again, the thing that I'm kind of looking at and thinking is just, is that a, is it a 0.1, a 0.5, a 0.0, something like that? And it is, so that will work. And then we can just reduce the number here to where we have 12. Okay, so we'll have like a large, a medium, and then we'll make a little tiny one here as well. Oops. Okay, so duplicate that again. Wow, I can't really see. Let's go like this. So we could either do... Let's do that. So we have 4 of these. Okay, and then why don't we do maybe 0.6? That will be good. And then we'll go back to where we have just 4 of those. Okay, so it's not perfect. You know, I don't love that we have like a really small gap there, and then we're gonna have like slightly bigger gap in some of these, but I can live with it. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and apply all these. Before I apply, though, I'm gonna go ahead and UV unwrap these. So let me just select sharp edges, and we will mark seam. And then I also want to do these. Oh, and we can delete the faces on these. Okay, those actually already have seams, so that's good. Let's make sure that this is all scaled. Good. And yeah, you know what I should have done? It's not really the end of the world, but I should have unwrapped these before I did this. So it would have made it a little bit easier. We could have just stacked everything, but it's fine. Okay, now for my pivot points on these, I think I will I think I'll set them to maybe right here. Okay, and then I've already got those marked. Let's mark these. Again, I should have done this before I copied all of that, but that's okay. Let's see, mark seam, and let's also apply scale. Let's apply scale. Oops, not rotation and scale. Apply scale, and I need to delete this. Okay. Sharp edges, we will mark seam. Okay. At least we haven't applied our modifiers yet, so that's good. And oh, wait. I did not what's going on here? Where is my other piece? Oh, I see. Okay, we set our pivot points in the wrong location there. This one, I want origin to be at 3D cursor. Okay, now I can select all of this. Actually, we can really probably just put all this on one UV grid. Let's unwrap all of that. Yeah, that's all fine. And then I'll just quickly pack all of this. We still really have plenty of room. We could probably add more stuff to that if we wanted. But this is fine. Okay, now we can go ahead and apply our modifiers. And I just want to join these now. Okay, so now we've got our railing. We'll call this railing large, railing medium, and railing small. Okay, and let's save. And we also have our steps. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and just delete these other pillars because we only need one pillar. That was really just to kind of help us visualize there. And now we are almost done. So yeah, we can really start making things going a little bit faster here now. Because we really, if we look at this, we really already have our pieces pretty much cut into the pieces that we need. So if we look at everything, most of these are going to be 3 by 2.5s, and then we're going to have some that are 3 by 2s, some there and there. We do probably need to do some corner pieces. I like to do corner pieces. So let's think about that. Now, when I get to this stage, what I like to do is, let's grab all of this, move all of this over. Actually, let's just move our entire house over. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate our house. Or actually, let's duplicate just the foundation first, and let's just work on that. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to basically just remove anything that is going to be a duplicate, and then we can just pretty much delete everything else. So, or I kind of said that backwards. We want to keep everything that is going to be a unique piece, and then we can delete everything that's going to be redundant. So basically what I'm saying is, like, this piece right here, if we just separated that, like, that is now a modular piece. And we don't need every other piece that is like that, basically, right? So like this, all of this, that. Okay, guys, so this is Hal from the next day. I started to kind of ramble a little bit in the video here where I was going into breaking up the foundation here, and I was getting very tired and just making mistakes. And so I figured that I would just basically redo this and just kind of show you what I've done here instead of going through it in the video, which was really, I think, probably would have made things just more confusing. So really, this is, again, pretty simple here. I have just taken everything from the foundation. I've deleted all of the faces here because we don't need those. And then I've just separated any sections that are unique. And so we come up with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces that allow us to recreate the entire thing. Now, again, I could probably do a little bit better on this. I could probably make corner pieces, and then that would allow me to kind of have, I think this piece would probably fit in there. So we could get rid of this part and this part. And then we could get rid of all of these corner pieces as well, because we could use these and then just add the corner onto them, get rid of this as well. So you could condense it down even further if you want to, but this video is already getting long enough, so I just ended up going with these. And then I went ahead and basically named all of these. So these are just foundation corner pieces, foundation 2 meter, foundation corner, and so on, things like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the foundation. I will go back to the video and we'll skip ahead to where we start working on the modular pieces for the house. And now I'm going to grab the foundation and the first floor, just duplicate it. And really the only reason that I'm keeping the foundation is just so it is a little bit easier to see what's going on there. And now we can go ahead and split up our walls, which this should definitely be much easier. I will, let me think. Yeah, I will create a few corner pieces for these. So let me think how I want to do that. Maybe we do one like 1 meter. Or really that's too much. Let's do 0.5. And then I'll put a loop here. Just GG to slide it all the way to the edge. And then pull it back a 0.5 meter. Okay. So then I'm going to just P by selection. And so now I have a corner piece there. And I'll also go ahead and set a pivot point to right there. Whoops. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's actually add thickness to this as well. Okay, so what we can do is just add the solidify modifier. And I'm going to go 0.1. Make sure that we have even thickness. Now, you can make your walls whatever thickness you want, but I find that 0.1 or 10 centimeters is pretty good. I think Epic recommends at least 10 centimeters to avoid light leaks and things like that. So the reason I'm doing 10 centimeters is because this is just my outer wall, right? And I'm probably going to have an inner wall as well. So I usually set my inner wall to 0.1 meters as well. So that gives me like a total thickness of 0.2. Okay. So yeah, we can do that. And now when we go ahead and separate this, now we have our wall section there. And then I still want to set my origin to the 3D cursor. Okay. And then what I kind of like to do here is basically just start building this out. So rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, so now that is going to change the size of our walls, which is fine, really. So we have a 2 meter wall. So I'll go ahead and separate that. And then again, set the origins. Okay. Yep, this one's going to be a little bit different because we are going to need, let's see, let's go ahead and separate all of this. And actually just delete that. So this is the same size there. That's good. This rotate Z 90. So this wall right here will need to be right there. So this is going to be a 1.5 meter wall, which is going to be fine. Okay, and so this is really just the basic process now. So, you know, I think really, with these walls, we have a, let's see, we have 1.5. These are the 0.5 corners. These are the 2s. So yeah, we really should be able to make pretty much everything with this. We'll need some 2.5 meter walls as well. Let's see, let's go ahead and just separate that one. So we'll need that. Okay, now this area over here, yeah, actually this would work fine as well, because this, we could put our corner piece here. Bring this in. And then we just need a 2 meter wall there, which we already have 2 meter walls right over here. Okay, yeah, so that works perfect. Okay, so I am just going to skip ahead a little bit and just show you guys a few things that you'll need to think about, because I got a little confused myself, and I think it'll be easier to just show you at this point. So just measuring everything out, I came to the inner corner here, which I was just using one of these, and this wasn't lining up for me. So I was flipping this around like this, whoops, and then putting this guy right here. Let me just move this one out of the way. And then I was like, wait, something is not right here. Why is that not working? Because I feel like that should have worked the way that we had everything set up. And then it dawned up on me that this piece, while it is 0.5 meters right here, which is what I need this distance to be, the thickness that we add to the wall, we added 1 centimeter of thickness, which means that when I apply this modifier, now you will see that the inner part right here is only 0.4. So you're going to need one unique corner piece that is going to be sized an additional 0.1 meter on each side, so that you now have 0.5 on this inner corner here. Okay, if that makes sense. But now, with basically everything here, so let's see, this, that should be everything. Actually, hold on, did I do that one? Oh yeah, that's my 2.5 meter. So this should be our full kit, basically. Okay, everything there, you should be able to make the entire house. All right, now, of course, we haven't done windows and walls. We can do that really quick. Let's see, let's make a, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm also going to just go ahead and delete this other stuff so I don't get confused. Okay, so let's just make a quick little door here. I'm not going to put too much thought into this. I don't know, we'll go out to 0.6, that seems good. And then we'll do, whoops. Maybe something kind of like that. Okay. Okay, so that would be just like our door there. Then we could have wall or windows. We'll do maybe that and that. Then we'll just, whoops, do maybe a window, maybe a square window, and then we'll also do then we'll also do like a little bit of a larger window here. Okay, maybe something like that. And that. Okay. Okay, hello again from a very well-rested Hal. I am kind of skipping ahead a little bit again because I started going into working on the roof and talking about how we could split it up into different pieces. And then I really kind of came to the conclusion that I don't really think that we need to split anything up. And I just decided to kind of keep the roof pieces the way that they are and just go ahead and set pivot points where I felt was a natural place to set them. I did start to kind of create pieces, like for this piece right here. I just created this one piece here, and then this is just like a 2 meter in length piece this way. And you could, you know, basically recreate this entire thing from these 2 pieces. To create this opposite side, you could just duplicate this scale on the Y -1, and then you would get that. And then you could just flip these around for the back and then just place these pieces in between. But again, this roof is not super modular. You know, you could do something like this and then give people the option to add more pieces in here to have a roof that extends back here, and then maybe add like another part of the house or something if you wanted to. That's totally an option that you could do, but for our purposes here, I just decided to keep all of these the way that they are, and I think that'll be fine. I've also gone through and just organized everything a little bit just to kind of show you the final set of everything, and I think that we did a pretty good job. So basically, these are all of our walls here. We have a few additional walls that have an area for a door, windows. We've got our foundation kit here. These are our roof pieces, our large roof pieces. We've got our steps, and then our pillar and the pieces of railing. So yeah, that should be everything that we need to recreate this. Now, when it comes to exporting everything, this is where I really like to have this plugin, the export to Unreal plugin. Again, it is paid. I hate that it's paid, and I hate that I am recommending a paid solution, but it's just the one that I've been using. And like I said, it came in a humble bundle that I got, so I got it for very inexpensive. I'm not even sure how much it normally is. Really, the main thing that I like it, or the main reason that I like it, is that I can basically select all of this and I can click export, and it will export everything. And the really important thing is it will keep the pivot point or the origin point at the location that I set for every single mesh. Okay, now when we do actually export everything here, we want to, of course, make sure that our scale is applied to everything. We want to make sure that everything is UV unwrapped. Now, I've done just a very basic UV unwrap on all of these, and I placed a lot of things on the same island. So like all of the walls here, I've basically put those all on the same thing. I think I put like all of these on the same, all of the roofs are on the same. So I'm not trying to be super efficient or anything here. These are, you know, for the most part going to be either untextured or just have like a very basic, maybe world aligned texture or something like that on there. This is really more for prototyping. If I was going to actually be texturing these in something like Substance Designer, then I would maybe put a little bit more thought into how I'm going to lay out my UV islands and things like that. But for our purposes here, it's going to be fine to just go with what we have with that. So yeah, once we're ready to export, I'm just going to go ahead and hit export, and that's going to export everything for me. Another nice thing about this add-on is it gives you an option to batch edit names for things. So I've got an option in here that will just automatically put SM underscore in front of everything. So that makes it easy when we bring it into Unreal, then everything is named correctly. So we can go ahead and bring those in now. Okay, so I'm going to just drag in all of the FBXs. Okay, now I am using Unreal Engine 5.4 still, so if you're using 5.5 or above, they have changed the FBX importer, and it's going to look a little bit different from this. For the most part, it is pretty much the same, but they do a couple of things that are different. And if you have any issues with weird shading or anything like that when you bring it in, specifically with 5.5 and above, then you might need to go into the options and disable recompute normals and tangents. So the way that the new FBX importer handles some of those things are just a little bit different. And so I have noticed some shading issues sometimes whenever I'm exporting from Blender to Unreal. But if you disable recompute normals and tangents, then it should give you, or shouldn't give you any errors then. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. I'm choosing not to import any textures and create materials so that we just bring the FBXs in. Okay, now one other thing that I did forget to mention really quickly, I've already done this, but as always, you just want to check your face orientation on everything and make sure that everything is good to go and that you don't have any normals that are flipped or reversed that need to be changed. So again, I had already checked that, but that's just a thing to check before you actually export and then import, although it's not the end of the world. If you do have something like, I don't know, maybe these steps that maybe you have like these are flipped. Okay, so you have something like this. And then if you export that, and then if we re-import those steps, let's see, SM steps. Yeah, so you might see something like this, and you're like, what is going on? It looks like my mesh is inside out. This is because your normals are flipped, and that again can be checked by checking the face orientation, which if you don't have the shortcut, it is somewhere. This is why I have the shortcut, because I always forget where it is. Oh, right here, face orientation. Okay, so if you have that, you need to highlight everything or select everything, hit Alt-N, recalculate outside. And then if that doesn't work, if you still have a face that needs to be flipped, you can just do Alt-N and you can flip. Okay, so let me now actually export and re-import that again. Let's see, re-import. Okay, so now that's fixed. And now we have all of our meshes. So we can drag everything out. Everything is good to go on our scale. All of our pivot points are correct. And now you can go ahead and start building out your house. And so there we have it. I kind of like to, just lay everything out as I bring everything in, just make sure that everything looks right. And then you can go about just rebuilding your house or using these pieces to build whatever you want now, because they work great for, snapping together with pretty much whatever size you have. So I usually just duplicate things and just snap things together and just go like this. I'm not going to recreate the entire house because we pretty much already did that, but you get the idea. And yeah, I think that is going to be it. So I hope you guys found this useful. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to do my best to try and show you the full process and I'm sorry that we had to kind of jump around a little bit towards the end there in the Blender section. I was definitely getting very tired last night and making mistakes, so I wanted to make sure that I showed you guys the best way to do things without just kind of rambling for too long. But if you guys have any questions, as always, just feel free to let me know. You can leave questions in the comments below. You can also check out the Discord and ask questions there. And thank you guys for the support, as always. I really appreciate it. And if you guys have any other videos like this you would like me to make, let me know. And I will see you guys on the next episode. All right, take care, guys.